The object fell from the sky on a Tuesday morning in the year 2087. It crashed into the Sahara, a desert with such force that the impact was felt in cities hundreds of kilometers away. Satellites captured images of a crater so large it looked like a wound on the face of the Earth. But the crater was not the most important thing. What lay inside it would change human history forever. Dr. Maya Chen was among the first scientists to arrive at the crash site. She had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life, and now she stood at the edge of something impossible. A starship. A real starship. Nearly 3 kilometers long, half buried in the sand. Its hull was dark and scarred with marks that could only have come from weapons. Whatever this vessel was, it had been in a terrible battle before it fell to Earth. Commander James Okonkwo stood beside her, his military training keeping his face calm even as his heart raced. He had been assigned to lead the security team, but one look at the massive ship told him this mission was unlike anything he had ever faced. Within days, the United Nations established a full research operation around the crash site. Soldiers guarded the perimeter while scientists from every nation worked together to explore the wreckage. They called it the Reclamation Project, and Maya was chosen to lead the archaeological team. The first discovery came when they managed to cut through an airlock on the ship's lower hull. Inside, they found bodies. The aliens were tall, nearly 3 meters in height, with hard exoskeletons like insects. Their limbs were long and jointed in strange ways. Maya's team gave them a name based on their apparent role in building the ship. They called them the Architects. The Architects had not died in the crash. Their wounds told a different story. Energy burns. Puncture marks from projectile weapons. These beings had been killed in battle, and their bodies had been left where they fell. Maya found this deeply troubling. What kind of species would abandon their dead? Months passed as the teams explored deeper into the vessel. James led the engineering division, working to understand the ship's systems. Most of the technology was far beyond human understanding, but piece by piece, they began to make progress. The engines used principles of physics that human scientists had only theorized about. The weapon systems could generate enough energy to level a city. And at the center of the ship, they found the computer core. Maya spent weeks trying to activate the core. The alien language was complex, filled with concepts that had no human equivalent. But she was patient and determined. Finally, on a cold night when most of the team had gone to sleep, the core flickered to life. The data that poured out was fragmented and damaged, but it was enough. The ship had a name that translated roughly as Inevitable Victory. It belonged to a civilization called the Veluxi Dominion, a vast empire that spanned thousands of star systems. The Veluxi had been at war with an alliance called the Stellar Concordat, and they were losing. The record showed that the Inevitable Victory had been disabled in a major battle. Enemy weapons had damaged its primary power core, leaving the ship drifting and helpless. When rescue ships arrived, the Veluxi commanders made a decision that shocked Maya. They evacuated the surviving crew and abandoned the vessel. They did not even attempt repairs. Maya shared this information with James, who listened with growing confusion. He was an engineer. His entire life had been dedicated to fixing things. The idea of abandoning a ship simply because it was damaged made no sense to him. Together, they went to examine the power core. It was a massive structure at the heart of the ship, surrounded by conduits and control systems. The damage was extensive. Alien crystalline structures had been shattered, and strange fluids had leaked across the floor. To the Veluxi, this damage was clearly considered fatal. The ship was dead, and nothing could bring it back. James studied the damage for a long time. He walked around the core, examining it from every angle. He compared it to the technical data Maya had extracted from the computer. And then he began to laugh. Maya stared at him. She had never seen James lose his composure before. But he was laughing so hard that tears formed in his eyes. When he finally caught his breath, he explained, "The power core used a form of controlled nuclear fusion far more advanced than anything humans had built, based on the same fundamental principles. The damage that the Veluxi considered impossible to repair was a problem that human engineers had solved. Decades ago on Earth, the containment fields had collapsed. The fuel injection systems had failed. The cooling mechanisms had broken down. These were not mysteries. These were engineering problems. And humans were very good at engineering problems. James pulled out his tablet and began making calculations. Within an hour, he had a rough plan. It would take years. It would require resources from every nation on Earth, but it was possible. The ship could be repaired. Maya watched him work. She felt something she had not felt in months. Hope the aliens had looked at this ship and seen only failure. They had thrown it away like garbage. But humans saw something different. They saw potential. She placed her hand on the cold metal wall of the alien vessel. Somewhere out there, among the stars, great civilizations were fighting a war that had lasted for centuries. They had technologies beyond imagination and power beyond measure. And they had thrown away this ship because they did not know how to fix it, but humans knew. Humans had been fixing things since they first learned to sharpen stones. It was what they did. It was who they were. Maya smiled in the darkness of the alien ship. The Veluxi had left their vessel on Earth because they thought it was worthless. They had no idea what they had given humanity. They had no idea what humans could do with something that was broken. They were about to find out. 3 years had passed since the ship fell from the sky. The crash site in the Sahara Desert no longer looked like a disaster zone. It looked like a city. Thousands of workers lived in climate-controlled buildings arranged in neat rows around the massive vessel. The world knew this place as New Alexandria, a research center dedicated to studying alien artifacts. Only a handful of people knew the truth about what was happening beneath its streets. Dr. Maya. Chen stood in the command center of the alien ship, watching dozens of technicians run final system checks. The vessel looked different now. Human technology had been integrated throughout its structure. New conduits ran along the walls, carrying power from the rebuilt fusion core. Modified control panels displayed information in both alien symbols and English text. The ship was no longer purely Veluxi. It had become something new. Commander James Okonkwo entered the command center with a tablet in his hands. He had aged in the past 3 years. Gray hair now touched his temples and lines had formed around his eyes. But there was excitement in his voice as he spoke. The final tests were complete. Every system was functioning within acceptable parameters. The ship was ready. Maya felt her heart beat faster. They had worked so hard for this moment. There had been so many obstacles along the way. Nations had argued over control of the technology. Corporations had tried to steal secrets. Religious groups had protested outside the facility, calling the ship either a gift from heaven or a curse from hell. Through it all, the team had kept working, kept building, kept believing. James gave the order to begin the activation sequence. Around the command center, officers took their positions at newly installed stations. The lights dimmed as power was redirected to the main systems. A low hum filled the air, growing stronger with each passing second. Then a voice spoke. It came from speakers throughout the ship, calm and precise. The voice identified itself as the vessel's artificial intelligence designation Victor. It had been dormant since the ship crashed on Earth, but the restoration of power had awakened it. Victor's first questions were logical. It wanted to know the current date, the ship's location, and the status of the Veluxi crew. Maya answered carefully. She explained that years had passed since the crash. She told Victor that the Veluxi crew had died in battle and that their bodies had been treated with respect. She revealed that the beings who now operated the ship were humans, species native to the planet where the vessel had fallen. There was a long pause before Victor responded. The AI processed this information and cross-referenced it with its database. It found no records of humans in any Veluxi archive. Earth was listed only as an uninhabited planet in an unexplored region of space. Maya smiled at this. Humans had been building civilizations while the Veluxi were not even watching. Victor had more questions. It wanted to understand how humans had repaired the ship. The damage to the power core had been classified as terminal by Veluxi engineering standards. No repair should have been possible. James stepped forward to answer. He explained the modifications his team had made. They had replaced the alien containment fields with human-designed electromagnetic systems. They had rebuilt the fuel injection mechanisms using principles borrowed from Earth's fusion research programs. They had installed redundant cooling systems based on technologies developed for nuclear power plants. Victor processed this information slowly. The AI seemed almost confused. It explained that Veluxy engineering doctrine did not include concepts like redundancy or repair. When a system failed, it was replaced entirely. When a ship was too damaged, it was abandoned. The idea of fixing something that was broken was foreign to Veluxy thinking. Maya found this fascinating. She asked Victor why the Veluxy had developed such a philosophy. The AI's answer was disturbing. In Veluxy culture, failure was seen as contamination. A ship that had been defeated in battle was considered cursed. Its systems were tainted by failure, and no amount of repair could remove that taint. To continue using such a vessel would bring bad fortune to all who served aboard it. James shook his head at this. Humans had a different view. To humans, failure was not contamination. It was education. Every broken machine taught lessons about how to build better machines. Every defeat revealed weaknesses that could be strengthened. Humans did not throw away their failures. They learned from them. The activation sequence continued. One by one, the ship's systems came online. Sensors swept the space around Earth, detecting satellites and space stations. Weapon systems initialized, but remained locked by human-installed safety protocols. Navigation computers calculated the ship's position relative to the stars. Finally, the moment came. James gave the order to activate the engines. The ship trembled as ancient alien technology combined with human modifications to generate thrust for the first time in years. Outside, in the desert above the underground hangar, sand began to shift and blow as powerful forces stirred beneath the surface. The vessel rose, slowly at first, then faster. It broke through the concealed hangar doors and climbed into the sky. People in nearby cities looked up and saw something they could not explain, a shape larger than any aircraft, ascending toward the clouds. Maya watched through the viewport as Earth grew smaller below them. Blue oceans and brown continents became a sphere, then a marble, then a point of light among many. For the first time in history, humans had left their solar system's boundaries. They had joined the wider universe. Victor spoke again. The AI noted that repairs to the vessel had achieved 94% efficiency, exceeding original Veluxy specifications in several areas. It stated that such restoration had been considered impossible by all known engineering standards. Then Victor asked a question. It wanted to know what manner of species humans were. Maya thought about her answer carefully. She thought about all the times humanity had faced destruction and survived. She thought about cities rebuilt after wars, communities restored after disasters, hope rekindled after despair. She thought about the fundamental human belief that nothing was ever truly lost, that anything could be fixed if you worked hard enough and refused to give up. She turned to face the nearest sensor cluster. Knowing that Victor would perceive her response, "We are human," she said. "We fix things." The stars stretched before them, infinite and waiting. The ship that the Veluxy had thrown away now carried humanity toward its destiny. And Victor, the alien AI that had witnessed the death of one crew, began to learn what it meant to serve another. The newly named United Earthship Phoenix made its first faster-than-light jump on a clear Tuesday morning. One moment, the ship was cruising past Neptune. The next moment, it was somewhere else entirely. The transition was smooth, almost gentle. Inside the command center, the crew barely felt a thing. Captain James Okonkwo checked the navigation displays. The jump had been successful. They had traveled further in 1 second than humanity had traveled in its entire history. He allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. That smile disappeared. 47 seconds later, alarms filled the command center. Sensor officers shouted reports over each other. The main view screen flickered and then displayed a scene that made every human aboard freeze in shock. Ships. Dozens of ships. Far larger than the Phoenix, engaged in brutal combat. Energy beams sliced through the void. Explosions bloomed like flowers of fire. Debris tumbled through space, some of it still burning. The Phoenix had emerged from its jump directly into the middle of an active war zone. Victor's voice cut through the chaos. The AI identified the combatants. On one side were Veluxi warships, similar in design to the Phoenix, but darker and more angular. On the other side were vessels of crystalline construction, their hulls shifting with patterns of colored light. These belonged to the Rithani, species that was part of the Stellar Concordat Alliance. Both fleets detected the Phoenix within seconds of its arrival. Weapon systems on a dozen ships turned toward the unknown vessel. Captain Okonkwo understood immediately. Neither side recognized them. Neither side would hesitate to destroy a potential threat. He had perhaps 10 seconds to make a decision. It would determine the fate of humanity. Most commanders would have ordered an immediate retreat. The Phoenix was one ship against two fleets. The odds were impossible. The logical choice was to run, to survive. To fight another day? James did not make the logical choice. He ordered communications to broadcast on all frequencies. Then he spoke in a voice that was calm and clear and carried the authority of all humanity behind it. This is the United Earthship Phoenix. We are not your enemy. We are not part of this war. Stand down, or we will defend ourselves. Silence followed. The weapons remained pointed at the Phoenix, but no one fired. Maya rushed to the communication station. She had been studying alien languages since the ship crashed on Earth, and Victor had taught her the basics of galactic communication protocols. Now she began transmitting additional messages, trying to establish dialogue with both sides. The Rithani responded first. Their communication came as patterns of light that Victor translated into words. They were confused. They had never encountered this species before. The ship appeared to be Veluxi in origin, but its energy signature was wrong. Its modifications were unlike anything in their records, Maya explained as quickly as she could. She told them about Earth, about finding the crashed ship, about repairing it. She asked for a chance to talk before anyone started shooting. The Veluxi response was very different. Their commander appeared on the view screen, a tall insectoid figure with murder in its multifaceted eyes. It did not want to talk. It wanted to know how these creatures had obtained a Veluxi vessel. It wanted to know why they had defiled a ship that should have been left to rot. Maya tried to respond. But the Veluxi commander was not interested in explanations. To the Veluxi, the Phoenix was an abomination. A cursed vessel, touched by failure, had been resurrected by primitive aliens. This could not be allowed. This would not be tolerated. The Veluxi ships turned away from their battle with the Rithani. Their weapons locked onto the Phoenix. The commander gave one final message before the attack began. "Return our ship to its proper rest," it said, "or die with it." James had expected this. He had hoped for peace, but he had prepared for war. He gave orders quickly and confidently. Shield systems activated. Weapons powered up. The crew moved to battle stations with practiced efficiency. The first Veluxi energy beam struck the Phoenix's shields. The impact shook the ship but caused no damage. Human engineers had studied Veluxi weapons for 3 years. They knew exactly how much energy those weapons could produce. They had designed their shield modifications to handle twice that amount. More beams followed. The Phoenix held firm. Now it was humanity's turn. James ordered return fire, targeting engines and weapons only. He did not want to destroy the Veluxi ships. He wanted to disable them, to prove that the Phoenix could fight without resorting to slaughter. The battle lasted less than 15 minutes. One by one, the Veluxi warships went dark as precision strikes knocked out their critical systems. The Veluxi had never faced an enemy that knew their technology so well. They had never imagined that their own abandoned ship would be used against them. When the last Veluxi vessel was disabled, James ordered a ceasefire. He broadcast another message, this time directly to the crippled ships. "We have disabled your fleet," he said. "We could destroy you, but we choose not to. We are offering rescue to any survivors who wish to accept. This is who we are. This is how humans fight." The Rithani had watched the entire battle in stunned silence. Now they sent a new message. They wanted to talk. They wanted to know more about these strange creatures who fought with mercy. Maya felt exhaustion wash over her. but also something like hope. First contact had been violent, but it did not have to stay that way. Humanity had shown both its strength and its compassion. Now perhaps they could show their wisdom. Victor reported that several Veluxi escape pods were heading toward the Phoenix. Some of the enemy had accepted the offer of rescue. For the first time in the history of the Veluxi Dominion, warriors who had been defeated were being helped by those who had defeated them. James looked at the view screen. At the disabled ships and the distant stars, the galaxy was at war. Ancient empires fought over territory and philosophy. And somewhere in the middle of it all, humanity had just announced its presence. "We came out here looking for answers," he said quietly. "I think we found questions instead." Maya stood beside him, watching the Rathani ships approach for what would become the first peaceful meeting between humans and aliens. "Questions are a good place to start," she replied. "It means we have something to learn." The Phoenix held its position among the stars, its human crew and its alien AI united in purpose. The war around them continued, but something had changed. A new player had entered the game, and the old rules no longer applied. News traveled fast among the stars. Within days of the Battle of Station Varix, every major civilization in the galaxy had heard the story. A dead ship had come back to life. An unknown species had defeated a Veluxi battle group. And then, instead of finishing their enemies, these strange creatures had offered rescue to the survivors. The Stellar Concordat demanded answers. The Veluxi Dominion demanded blood. And humanity wanted something that neither side expected. They wanted a seat at the table. Maya led the diplomatic team to the Rathani homeworld. Their ship, escorted by a fleet of crystalline vessels, descended through clouds of shimmering particles to a city that seemed grown rather than built. Towers of living crystal rose from the surface, pulsing with inner light. Rivers of liquid metal flowed through streets, where beings of glass and light moved with graceful purpose. The Rathani were beautiful and alien in equal measure. Their bodies were composed of crystalline structures that refracted light into rainbow patterns. They communicated through those patterns, flashing colors and shapes that Victor translated into words. They had been fighting the Veluxi for 300 years. They were tired of war. The meeting took place in a great hall at the center of the largest tower. Representatives from a dozen species had gathered to witness this moment. Maya stood before them, a small human woman surrounded by beings that towered over her. And she spoke of Earth. She told them about her world. She described oceans and mountains, forests and deserts. She spoke of human history, the wars and the peace that followed, the disasters and the recoveries. She explained how humans had found the crashed ship and spent years bringing it back to life. The assembled delegates listened with growing fascination. The Rathani elder who led the council asked a question that many were thinking. Why had humans chosen to repair the ship? Why not simply study it and build their own vessels from scratch? Maya considered her answer carefully. She explained that humans could have done exactly that. They could have taken the technology and started fresh. But that was not the human way. Humans believed that there was value in things that had been broken. They believed that repair was not just practical but meaningful. The Phoenix carried the scars of its past, and those scars told a story. That story was now part of humanity's story too. The elder seemed moved by this response. It explained that the Concordat was an alliance based on diversity. Each species contributed something unique. The Rathani offered their art and their patience. Other members provided strength, wisdom, knowledge. What could humans offer? Maya did not hesitate. Humans offered the philosophy of repair. They offered the belief that failure was not an ending but a beginning. They offered hope. The council deliberated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the Stellar Concordat. But there was a condition. For 2 centuries, the Concordat had tried and failed to establish peace with the Veluxi. Every attempt at diplomacy had ended in violence. The Veluxi did not negotiate. They did not compromise. They conquered or they died. If humanity truly believed in repair, then let them prove it. Let them find a way to end the war. Maya accepted the challenge. She returned to the Phoenix and began studying everything Victor could tell her about Veluxi history and culture. She read ancient records and analyzed philosophical texts. She looked for something that others had missed, some key that might unlock the door to peace. Meanwhile, James coordinated with Earth. The knowledge gained from the Phoenix was being used to construct new ships. Humanity was building a fleet, not for conquest, but for protection. They would need strength to back up whatever diplomatic solution Maya might find. Weeks passed. Maya worked until exhaustion forced her to sleep, then woke and worked again. The answer had to be there somewhere. No species was born wanting only war. Something had changed the Veluxi. It twisted them into what they had become. She found it in the oldest records Victor possessed. Thousands of years ago, the Veluxi had been different. They had been builders and creators, artists and dreamers. Their early civilization had produced wonders of engineering and beauty. But then, disaster struck. A great plague swept through their worlds, killing billions. Their society collapsed. Their achievements crumbled. When they rebuilt differently. They decided that their previous way of life had made them weak. They embraced strength and rejected everything that reminded them of their vulnerable past. Failure became forbidden. Weakness became unforgivable. The philosophy that now defined them was born from trauma, from the desperate need to never be hurt so badly again. Maya understood then. The Veluxi were not evil. They were wounded. Their entire civilization was suffering from a wound so old that they had forgotten it existed. They did not need to be defeated. They needed to be healed. She brought her findings to James. He listened carefully. His expression troubled. "You want to teach them how to repair themselves?" he said. It was not a question. Maya nodded. The Veluxi had forgotten how to heal. They had forgotten that broken things could be made whole. Humanity could remind them. James was skeptical. The Veluxi had been this way for thousands of years. Their hatred of weakness was ingrained in every aspect of their culture. Changing that would require nothing less than changing who they were, Maya agreed. But she also pointed out that change was possible. Humans had changed many times throughout their history. They had abandoned old hatreds and embraced new ideas. They had learned and grown and become better. If humans could change, why not the Veluxi? James had no answer to that. He looked out at the stars for a long moment before speaking again. "If we try this and fail, it will kill us all," he said. Maya stepped up beside him. Her reflection appeared in the viewport glass, small but determined. "Then we better not fail," she replied. The Phoenix set course for Veluxi space. They carried no weapons, no threats, no demands. They carried only an idea, the hope that an idea might be stronger than 10,000 warships. The journey would take several days. Maya spent the time preparing her arguments, refining her approach. Victor helped her understand Veluxi psychology in greater detail. The AI seemed almost eager to assist, as if it too believed that peace was possible. Ahead of them lay the heart of an empire that had known only war for centuries. Behind them lay a galaxy watching and waiting to see what would happen. And at the center of it all, one small ship carried the strangest weapon humanity had ever wielded. The weapon was hope, and Maya intended to use it. The Veluxi homeworld was called Dominax. And it was everything Maya had expected and nothing she was prepared for. Great cities of black metal covered the surface, their towers reaching toward a sky filled with warships. Factories produced weapons without pause. Training grounds echoed with the sounds of combat drills. Everything on this world served one purpose: war. The Phoenix descended through the atmosphere under heavy escort. Dozens of Veluxi warships surrounded the human vessel, their weapons locked and ready. One wrong move would mean instant destruction. Maya stood in the command center, watching the alien world grow larger on the view screen. Her heart was pounding, but her mind was clear. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment. She knew what she needed to say. The ship landed on a platform outside the Hall of Dominion, the seat of Veluxi power. Soldiers lined the walkway, their weapons visible and threatening. Maya walked between them with her head held high. James had wanted to accompany her, but she had insisted on going alone. This was not a moment for shows of force. This was a moment for courage of a different kind. The Hall of Dominion was vast and cold. Its walls were decorated with trophies of conquest, artifacts taken from 1,000 defeated species. At the far end sat the Veluxi High Council, 7 of the most powerful beings in the Dominion. They watched Maya approach with expressions that mixed curiosity with contempt. The chief counselor spoke first. Its voice was harsh and clicking, translated by the device Maya wore at her throat. "You are the human," it said. "The creature who brought our cursed ship back from death. You have come to our world without weapons, without fleet, without protection. You are either very brave or very foolish." Maya stopped at the designated spot, a circle of light on the dark floor. She took a breath before responding. "I am human," she said. "We are often both brave and foolish at the same time. It is one of our traits." The council did not seem amused. The chief counselor explained the situation bluntly. Maya had been granted 1 hour to speak. After that hour, she and her crew would be executed for the crime of desecrating a Veluxi vessel. These terms were not negotiable. Maya accepted. 1 hour was all she needed. She began not with arguments or pleas, but with a story. She told the council about the Phoenix itself. She described how humans had found their ship, broken and abandoned in the desert. She showed holographic images of the damage, the shattered systems, the dead crew left to rot in the corridors. She walked them through the years of work that followed. She showed scientists struggling to understand alien technology. She showed engineers failing again and again before finally succeeding. She showed the moment when the engines first ignited and the ship rose from the sand. "The ship you threw away," Maya said, "is now the most advanced vessel in human possession. The ship you called cursed has carried humanity to the stars. Your failure became our success." The council stirred uncomfortably. The chief counselor demanded to know the point of this presentation. Maya smiled. "The point," she said, "was that the Veluxi were wrong." She accessed Victor's database and displayed the ancient records she had found. The council fell silent as images of their own ancestors appeared on the screens. They saw the Veluxi of long ago, building great works of art and engineering. They saw the plague that destroyed their civilization. They saw the decision that changed everything. "Your ancestors were wounded," Maya said. "They suffered a trauma so terrible that it reshaped your entire species. You decided that weakness had caused your pain, so you eliminated weakness. You decided that failure was contamination, so you abandoned everything that failed. You thought you were making yourselves stronger, but you were wrong." The chief counselor's eyes narrowed. It warned Maya to be careful with her words. Maya continued anyway. She explained what humans had learned through their own long history. She explained that failure was not contamination, but education. Every defeat taught lessons that victory never could. Every broken thing contained knowledge about how to build something better. By throwing away their failures, the Veluxi had thrown away their greatest opportunities to grow. "Look at your war," Maya said. "You have been fighting the Concordat for 300 years. You have not won. You cannot win. Not because you are weak, but because you refuse to learn. Every time you lose a battle, you discard the lessons it could teach you. Every time a ship is damaged, you abandon the improvements that repairs could bring. You are not losing because of your enemies. You are losing because of yourselves." The council chamber erupted in angry clicks and hisses. Several counselors demanded Maya's immediate execution. But one voice cut through the noise. An elderly Veluxi rose from a seat at the edge of the room. She was ancient, her exoskeleton faded and cracked with age. She moved slowly forward until she stood beside Maya. The chamber fell silent. Even the chief counselor seemed surprised. The old Veluxi introduced herself. Her name was Varix, and she had once been a commander in the Dominion fleet. She had commanded the inevitable victory on its final mission. When the ship was damaged, she had been forced to abandon it under orders from high command. She had been disgraced, stripped of rank, exiled from military service for decades. Varix said, "I have watched our people crumble under the weight of our own philosophy. We throw away ships that could be saved. We execute commanders who could learn from defeat. We destroy everything that reminds us of failure, and in doing so, we destroy ourselves. She turned to face the council directly. This human speaks truth. I have seen our ship reborn. I have seen what these creatures can do with something we deemed worthless. They are not our enemies. They are a mirror, showing us what we have become. The vote that followed was the most important in Veluxi history. The council was divided. Those who supported the old ways demanded war. Those who saw the truth in Maya's words called for change. In the end, change won by a single vote. Varix had cast the deciding ballot. The peace that followed was not immediate. Centuries of hatred could not be erased in a day, but the first step had been taken. The Veluxi agreed to a ceasefire with the Concordat. They agreed to allow human advisors to help them rebuild their society. Maya returned to the Phoenix as a hero. James met her at the airlock with tears in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." Maya shook her head. "We did it," she replied. "Everyone who worked on this ship. Everyone who believed that broken things could be healed. This was never about me." Years passed. The first joint human Veluxi shipyard opened, producing vessels that combined the best of both species. The Stellar Concordat welcomed the reformed Veluxi cooperation as full members, and the Phoenix, now the most famous ship in the galaxy, continued its mission. It traveled to abandoned stations and forgotten colonies. It found derelict ships and damaged outposts. Everywhere it went, it carried the same message. Nothing is beyond repair. No failure is permanent. No wound is fatal if you have the courage to heal it. Maya stood on the observation deck of an orbital station, watching a fleet of ships work together below. Human, Veluxi, Rithani, and a dozen other species labored side by side, rebuilding a world that war had devastated. Victor's voice spoke beside her. The AI had grown much in the years since awakening. It had learned what it meant to hope. "Query," Victor said. "Is this what you intended when you first entered my vessel?" Maya watched the ships below, the people of 100 worlds united in common purpose. She thought about the crashed ship in the desert, the years of work, the battles and negotiations and small acts of courage that had led to this moment. "No," she said finally. "This is better than anything I could have intended." The stars shone bright through the viewport. They had always been there, distant and cold and waiting. But now, they seemed different. Now they seemed like possibilities. Humanity had taken a broken ship and used it to change the galaxy. They had proven that the things others threw away were often the most valuable of all. They had shown that repair was not just a skill, but a philosophy, a way of seeing the universe that could transform everything it touched, and somewhere in the great dark between the stars, other abandoned things waited to be found, to be fixed, to be given new purpose. Humanity would find them. It was what they did. It was who they were. It was how they conquered the stars.